Lola ran the company her father had built from the ground up. After his death, she didn't just inherit it. She took charge, making moves that impressed everyone, even the board members who had underestimated her. She was smart, tough, and focused. She didn't need anyone's approval, especially not her husband's, Tunde's. Tunde was nothing like her. He was charming but lazy, always more interested in the image of success than the work that went into it. He'd never cared much for the company, always too busy with his own interests. He'd watch her work late into the night, but never offered to help. Lola didn't mind. She wasn't looking for his help. She had her own vision. Her father's legacy wasn't just the company. It was the reputation she was building. People respected her. Tunde, though, seemed to resent it. The more she succeeded, the less he seemed to like it. He'd make jokes about how she was too busy or how she'd never have time for him. The insults started small, just little digs about how she was too focused on work, how she didn't know how to relax anymore. One evening, after a long day at the office, Lola came home tired but satisfied. She had just closed a major deal that would set the company up for the next decade. She didn't expect a celebration from Tunde. In fact, she rarely did. He'd never been one for celebration. But this time, as she walked into their home, she saw him sitting on the couch, the remote control in his hand. "Another deal, huh?" His voice was sharp, but Lola didn't let it bother her. She put down her bag and went to the kitchen to grab a glass of water. "Yes, another deal. It's what I've been working on for weeks." Tunde laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So, what's the plan now? Will you be too busy to even talk?" "To your husband again?" Lola took a deep breath, steadying herself. She didn't have time for this tonight. "Tunde, we've talked about this. I'm doing what I need to do." But his tone grew louder, his frustration boiling over. "Always so focused on your damn company? Who are you really doing this for? I'm just here to clean up the mess when you're too busy to see me. You don't even notice when I need you." Lola turned to face him, her patience starting to wear thin. "I do notice, Tunde, but you're not a kid anymore. You want attention, you give me reasons to care. You can't sit back and expect me to make everything perfect while you do nothing. You think you're so great now, don't you? Running your father's company, acting like you know everything. You're just a woman playing a man's game." The words hit Lola like a slap, and for a moment her breath caught in her throat, but then she remembered who she was. She wasn't going to let his bitterness drag her down. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. It was their driver, Elle, a quiet man who worked for them but had been around long enough to understand the dynamics of the house. Tunde stormed past him without a word, muttering under his breath. Lola had always been the type to extend a hand to those who needed it. That's how she ended up hiring Kemi, her personal assistant, back when Kemi had just graduated and struggled to find a job. Kemi wasn't exactly qualified, but Lola saw potential in her. They became more than employer and employee. They became friends. Kemi was someone Lola leaned on, trusted, and shared her thoughts with when the weight of the company and her marriage grew too heavy. What Lola didn't know was that Kemi, beneath the surface of loyalty, had been harboring a secret for years. Tunde had been seeing Kemi long before Lola even entered the picture. They'd started their affair 2 years ago, before Tunde even married Lola. It was something that started as a casual fling, something Tunde didn't think would last, but somehow it grew into something deeper. Kemi had always been there, by Tunde's side when things with Lola got tense, when his marriage started showing cracks. She was his escape, his confidant, and eventually his lover. Tunde's resentment toward Lola had only fueled the affair. He was tired of being overshadowed by her success. While Lola was building an empire, Tunde was left to simmer in his own frustration. Kemi provided him with the attention and validation he craved. When he was with her, he didn't have to compete. didn't have to feel small next to Lola's towering ambition. But the more he sank into this affair, the more he resented Lola even more, despite the fact that his affair was hidden in plain sight, masked by Kemi's role as Lola's closest confidant. It was supposed to be a night of triumph. Lola had just closed the biggest deal of her career, one that would solidify her company's place as a leader in the industry. She had worked for months to secure the partnership, and after hours of intense negotiations, she finally got what she wanted. As she left the office, she felt a sense of pride, a quiet satisfaction that tonight would be a turning point for her business. She had been driving home alone, her mind racing with thoughts of the future, when her phone buzzed. It was Tunde. She was too tired to answer, so she let it ring out, and then another message came through, this time from Kemi. The messages were brief, but Lola didn't pay much attention. She was focused on the road ahead, her body exhausted, but her mind still sharp. She had no way of knowing that fate was waiting for her just around the corner. The night was dark, the road slick from an earlier rain. Lola's car skidded, the tires losing grip as the rain made the streets treacherous. Before she could react, a truck came barreling toward her, the screeching of tires the only warning. The crash was violent. Her car spun out of control, slamming into the guardrail before flipping over, crumpling like paper under the impact. Everything went black. Lola woke up in a hospital bed, her head pounding, her body aching. The sterile smell of the room mixed with the faint scent of antiseptic. But it wasn't the hospital room that terrified her. It was the cold, unfeeling way her body felt beneath her. She tried to move, to shift her legs, but they didn't respond. Her heart raced as panic set in. "Don't try to move just yet," a nurse said gently, her voice calm but serious. "You've been in a severe accident. We're doing everything we can," but nothing made sense. Lola's mind was still foggy from the trauma, and it took several moments for her to process the gravity of what had happened. Lola lay in the hospital bed, her body aching from the trauma, her mind still foggy from the accident. The bright lights overhead blurred in and out of focus, and every movement felt like it took an eternity. She barely registered the nurse who came in and out, checking her vitals, adjusting the IV. It wasn't until the door opened again that she realized the doctor had entered the room. He was a man in his 40s, with a calm, professional demeanor that Lola barely noticed at first. His soft voice was meant to reassure, but all it did was make her heart race. "Lola, how are you feeling?" the doctor asked gently, but there was a weight in his tone that made Lola's stomach twist. "I know it's been a rough few hours, but we're doing everything we can." She tried to respond, but her throat felt tight. She couldn't even swallow properly, let alone speak. The thought of Tunde still not being here gnawed at her. Where was he? Was he really so indifferent that he couldn't be there when she woke up? The doctor must have noticed her frustration because his voice softened even more. "It's important to stay calm, okay? We'll get through this together." Lola stared at him, still too disoriented to fully process his words. But then the door opened again, and this time Tunde and Kemi walked in together. Her heart, which had been sinking since she woke up, dropped even further. They walked into the room as if they had just stepped off some red carpet, both of them looking concerned, but only because they were trying to put on a show. Before Lola could say anything, the doctor turned to her, his expression unreadable but kind. "Lola, we've run some tests, and it's important we discuss the results with you." Tunde and Kemi's eyes immediately snapped to the doctor. "The accident caused significant damage to your spine, Lola," the doctor continued, his voice serious. "We're doing everything we can, but the truth is, there's a possibility that you may never be able to walk again." "The accident caused significant damage to your spine, Lola," the doctor continued, his voice serious. "We're doing everything we can, but the truth is, there's a possibility that you may never be able to walk again." The words hit Lola like a hammer. She could feel the air in the room go thick, heavy. Her hands began to tremble, and her breath came in shallow gasps. Her world collapsed in an instant. "What?" she whispered, the tears starting to burn behind her eyes. "What do you mean, never again?" Her voice cracked on the last word. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her, and all she could do was fall. The doctor nodded slowly. "There's swelling on your spinal cord, Lola. We're monitoring it closely, but the damage is severe. We can't say for sure if you'll regain the use of your legs." The doctor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, trying to comfort her. "I understand this is hard to hear, Lola, but we need to be realistic about the situation. We'll continue to monitor your condition, but right now, this is where we stand." Tunde and Kemi exchanged a glance. Tunde stepped forward, placing a hand on Lola's arm, his voice laced with false concern. "I'm so sorry, Lola. This is just terrible." Lola turned her head toward him, her eyes brimming with tears. I don't know what to do," she whispered, her voice shaking with the weight of the news. "I've worked so hard. Everything I've built, everything I've worked for." Kemi leaned in slightly, offering her a sad smile. "You're so strong, Lola. You've always been strong. We'll get through this together, okay?" Lola's chest tightened as the tears fell freely now. She tried to blink them away, but the pain was overwhelming, both physical and emotional. The fear of never walking again, the loss of her independence, the uncertainty of the future, it was all too much. She closed her eyes tightly, unable to stop the tears, but she didn't want to hear any more empty words. She just wanted to be left alone, but Tunde, sensing the tension in the room, remained by her side, his hand still lightly gripping her arm. "We'll figure this out, Lola," he repeated, his voice softer now, though still lacking the sincerity she needed to hear. "You're not alone." Lola nodded weakly, but deep inside she knew the truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. After Lola was discharged from the hospital, her life became a new kind of reality. She was no longer the woman who had been running a successful company, walking tall, making her own decisions. Now, she was confined to a wheelchair, dependent on others for the simplest tasks. The weight of the accident was more than physical. It felt like it had taken everything from her. Tunde, surprisingly, stepped up. For the first few weeks, he was the model husband. He was by her side every day, making sure she was comfortable, helping her with things she could no longer do herself. He drove her to therapy appointments, sat with her as she tried to adjust to her new life. He seemed concerned, attentive, even tender in ways she hadn't seen before. He cooked meals for her, helped her get dressed, and stayed with her through the long nights when she couldn't sleep. He would sit with her, holding her hand, promising her that things would get better. And for a while, Lola believed him. She was still grieving, still adjusting, but the small gestures of kindness, Tunde's soft words, his touch, gave her a sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild their lives together. Then one evening, after a long day of physical therapy, Lola returned home feeling exhausted, her body aching in ways she didn't know were possible. She had made progress, but it was slow, and the future seemed uncertain. She wheeled herself into the living room, where Tunde was sitting on the couch, his phone in his hand. He didn't even look up when she entered. "Tunde?" she said, her voice weak from the day's effort. "Could you please help me with my medicine?" Tunde didn't respond right away, and when he finally did, it wasn't with the same urgency he had shown in the first few weeks. "Yeah, just give me a second," he muttered, barely looking up from his phone. Lola was quiet as she waited. Something about his tone, his detachment, struck her. This wasn't the man who'd been so attentive just a few weeks ago. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the feeling in her gut wouldn't go away. She could hear the faint buzzing of his phone and could only imagine who he might be texting. When he finally brought her the medication, he did so without a word, handing it to her almost mechanically. Lola took the pills, her eyes drifting to his face. She searched for any hint of the husband who had cared so deeply for her, but all she found was a man who seemed distant, distracted. "Are you okay, Tunde?" she asked, her voice tentative. "You've seemed off lately." Tunde looked at her, his eyes briefly flicking up from his phone. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he sighed, setting the phone down on the coffee table. "I'm fine, Lola. You're the one with all the problems right now." That night, Lola cried herself to sleep. The tears flowed freely, a mixture of pain, frustration, and helplessness. She was exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. She had tried to stay strong, to adjust to her new reality, but the weight of it all was crushing her. It was another sleepless night when Tunde finally came to her with the words that made her stomach drop. He stood at the door to her study, his frame casting a long shadow across the room. Lola was at her desk, attempting to work, as usual, managing her company. A part of her life she refused to let go of, despite everything. She'd adjusted to working from home, coordinating everything from the bed or the wheelchair, relying on her team and her own sharp mind to keep the business afloat. "Tunde?" she said softly, looking up from the papers in front of her. He stood there, arms crossed, his face a mask of anger. His eyes were cold, so unlike the man she had once known. "Lola," he began, his voice clipped. "I think it's time you let go of the company." Lola's heart skipped a beat. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm still managing it. I'm still here." "Not really," Tunde snapped, cutting her off. "You can barely move around. You can't even get out of this damn chair." His words were sharp, bitter. "You're not the woman I married anymore, and this company isn't yours to manage anymore. You need to face the facts, Lola." Lola stared at him, disbelief washing over her. "You want me to sign over everything?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "You want me to hand over my father's legacy to you?" Tunde stepped forward, his anger growing. "Yes, I do. You can't even get to the office anymore, can you? You think your people are going to take you seriously when you're stuck? Here, crippled and helpless, I'm the one who's been holding things together around here. It's time you accepted that." "Please, Tunde," she pleaded, her voice shaking with emotion. "This is everything. This is my father's work. I can't just give it to you. I've worked my whole life for this." But Tunde wasn't listening. His face was hard, his jaw clenched tight. "You can't run it anymore. You're not the same woman. You're weak." His words cut deeper than any physical injury ever could. Lola could feel the tears prickling at her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She shook her head, a quiet sob escaping her lips. "I won't do it, Tunde. I won't." With that, he turned on his heel and walked out, slamming the door behind him with a force that shook the house. Over the next few days, Tunde's behavior became increasingly hostile. His once supposed support for her evaporated, replaced with cold indifference and sometimes outright cruelty. He would glare at her when she asked him to do things for her, simple things like fetching her medication or helping her get comfortable. In bed, every time she needed something, his eyes would narrow with frustration, like she was a burden to him. The patience he had shown in the beginning was long gone, replaced by a sharp temper that made her feel small and insignificant. He would embarrass and make a show of shame out of her every chance he got, even in front of the driver and the maids that worked in the house. The tension in the house had become unbearable. Lola was no longer able to ignore the coldness in Tunde's behavior. The first few weeks after her release from the hospital had been difficult, but now, weeks later, she could feel the weight of his resentment and the increasing distance between them. Kemi hadn't visited once since Lola left the hospital. Not once. The woman she had brought into her life, the one she had taken in when no one else would, had completely disappeared. It was as if Lola never existed to her. And so one weekend, when Tunde told her he was going to spend the weekend away, Lola didn't ask where. She had learned that it was pointless to question him anymore. What Lola didn't know was that while she was alone in the house, Tunde and Kemi were together, and their conversation had taken a dark turn. They had met up at Kemi's apartment, secluded, out of sight, away from the prying eyes of anyone who might have questioned their closeness. Tunde had been increasingly distant with Lola, and Kemi had long since stopped pretending to be the supportive friend. As Tunde sat on the couch in Kemi's living room, "You know," Kemi began, her voice low and steady, "Lola will never be able to run this company again. It's all slipping from her fingers. I've been watching her for weeks now. She's just holding on to whatever pride she has left." Tunde, his face tight with frustration, nodded. "Yeah, and she's holding me back too. I can't keep pretending I'm okay with this. She's too weak to do anything anymore. She can't even sign her own name half the time. I've been doing all the heavy lifting, all the work." Kemi leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and greed. "What if we just ended it? We make her sign everything over to you, the company, the house, all of it. Once she's gone, we won't have to deal with her anymore. It'll all be ours." Tunde looked at her, the thought taking hold in his mind. "You mean get rid of her?" Kemi's lips curled into a cold smile. "Why not? She's already a shell of the woman she used to be. She can barely move, barely even think straight anymore. All it would take is a little push. We could make it look like an accident, something no one would suspect." "I can't believe I'm even thinking about this," Tunde said, the words coming out in a low, disbelieving tone. "But you're right. She's nothing now. She can't fight us. And if I wait any longer, she'll drag everything down with her. I'll never get control of everything as long as she's still breathing." Kemi's smile widened. "Exactly, and we'll be free. No more worrying about her looking over our shoulders, no more pretending to care. It'll be just you and me, and everything she worked for, everything we can take, will be ours." Tunde was quiet for a moment, his fingers tapping against the glass. He was torn, unsure of what he was about to do. But the bitterness, the resentment, the anger that had been building inside him for so long clouded his judgment. He knew what he had to do. The plot had thickened. Tunde, cold and ruthless, knew exactly what needed to be done to take full control of Lola's life, to eliminate the one thing standing between him and everything he wanted. That evening, Tunde made a phone call, the sound of his voice low and calculated. He dialed a number that had long been reserved for desperate, dangerous solutions. He needed someone to get rid of Lola for good. He had met this man a while ago through some unsavory business contacts, an assassin known for his discretion, his ability to get in and out of places without leaving a mark. Tunde knew that this was the only way to get what he wanted. The call was short but precise. "I need a job done," Tunde said, the words slipping easily off his tongue, as if they were nothing more than a routine request. "I need someone taken out, and I need it done quietly. No traces, no mess." The assassin's voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm. "You got the location?" Tunde hesitated for a moment, then spoke the address. The words were heavy, but it wasn't the address of a home anymore. It was the location of the life he was about to end. "Yes, the house. I'll help you get in. No one will know." "All right," the assassin replied. "You make sure I can get in and out clean, and I'll take care of the rest." Tunde hung up, his hand still gripping the phone tightly as the weight of what he had just agreed to settled into his bones. The night had arrived, and everything was set. Tunde had already made sure everything was arranged. The assassin knew exactly what to do, and made sure to guide him through the details of how to enter the house without anyone noticing. He had told the assassin everything: the layout of the house, the best routes to avoid security cameras, and when Lola would be most vulnerable, alone in her room, when the house was still and quiet. It was the perfect setup. And as Tunde left the house that evening, a cold sense of satisfaction washed over him. Tonight would be the end of it all. Inside the house, the assassin was moving like a shadow, blending into the dark corners, taking careful, deliberate steps. He had made it inside undetected, as planned, using the back entrance and slipping through the quiet hallways with the practiced precision of someone who had done this many times before. As the assassin neared Lola's door, he slowed his movements, reaching into his coat to pull out his gun. He needed to be quick, quiet, and efficient. No mistakes. The gun clicked as he prepared it, readying himself to enter the room and complete the job. He was almost there, but just as he was about to step forward, Aid, the driver who had been working late in the garage and was making his way inside, when he noticed something odd. A shadow moving toward Lola's room. Too quiet, too deliberate to be just anyone. Aid's instincts kicked in immediately. He knew something wasn't right. His heart began to race, but he remained calm. Aid quickly scanned the area, his eyes falling on an old wooden bat tucked behind the coat rack in the hallway. Without hesitation, he grabbed it and moved quickly, quietly, positioning himself in the shadows. He could see the assassin now, just a few feet away from Lola's door, his attention focused on the task at hand. The assassin was so intent on his mission that he didn't hear the soft, approaching footsteps behind him. He wasted no time. With a swift, practiced motion, he swung the bat with all his strength. The heavy wood struck the assassin's back with a loud thud. The man staggered forward, lost his balance, and collapsed to the ground, knocked unconscious. He pulled out his phone, dialing the police number with shaking hands. As he pressed the call button, he raised his voice, his panic giving way to a sense of urgency. "Hello, yes, this is an emergency. There's an intruder in the house. He's armed. We need help immediately." The dispatcher on the other end spoke quickly, asking for the address, and Aid rattled it off, his eyes still on the unconscious assassin. With the phone still in his hand, Aid took action. He rushed to the staircase and shouted, "Lola! Lola! Get up! Get out of your room! Now!" His voice was loud, urgent, and Lola, though confused, immediately started to respond. Her wheelchair was near the door, but she wasn't fast enough to get out by herself. Aid rushed to her side, lifting her out of the chair. Within minutes, the police arrived, swarming the house, securing the area, and taking the unconscious assassin into custody. Tunde, who had been out, arrived just as the police were finishing their investigation. His face drained of color when he saw the officers and the stretcher being prepared for the assassin. "What's going on?" Tunde asked, trying to appear calm, though his eyes darted nervously around the scene. "Mr. Tunde," an officer called out, walking toward him. "We have a situation here. We've apprehended an intruder in your home, armed, attempting to enter your wife's room." Tunde's heart skipped a beat. What? What are you talking about?" The officer's face was stern. "We have reason to believe this was an attempted murder. Your wife was the target. The assassin, now fully conscious and in police custody, was interrogated rigorously. Despite his initial resistance, the pressure of the investigation soon broke him. Under intense questioning, he finally confessed everything. He revealed that Tunde had hired him to kill Lola, promising a large sum of money in return for taking her out of the picture and making it look like a tragic accident. The assassin spoke of how Tunde had detailed the entire plan, how he would enter the house, how he would sneak past security to the shock of everyone. The assassin also ratted out Kimi, who had been complicit in the entire plot. It was revealed that she had been the mastermind behind ensuring the plan went smoothly, encouraging Tunde to eliminate Lola and split everything between the two of them. Kemi's betrayal was just as deep as Tunde's, and as the truth unfolded, both were arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. When Tunde was arrested, he had already begun packing his things, clearly planning to flee the country. But his escape plan was foiled by the police, who had tracked him down just in time as he was handcuffed and led away. Meanwhile, Aide, the driver, was hailed as a hero. His quick thinking and bravery had saved Lola's life, and as a token of appreciation, Lola gave him a huge sum of money and also gave him an important position in her company, as he was more than qualified. As for Lola, the road to recovery was long and challenging, but with consistent therapy and an unwavering determination, she regained the use of her legs. Moral of the story: betrayal can come from the people you trust the most. It's painful and life-altering, but it doesn't define who you are. While it's important to put your trust in the right people, it's just as important to know your worth and never let anyone, not even those closest to you, take away your strength. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. We'd love to hear what you think. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories.